Coraline. Now, this movie is super old. I didn't actually expect to do a review on this movie, but I just watched this actually last night for the first time. I never really had much interest, which is obviously why I haven't seen it in like the 7 years that it's been out. But I was like, you know what? I like stop motion movies. It got fairly good reviews. I remember people enjoying it. So I was like, you know what? There's nothing for me to do. I was kind of tired of doing videos last night, and I was waiting for someone to call me, so I didn't know that I had the time to even do one. So I was like, well, I'll just watch this movie then, and I'll just finish it even after I get the call. And going through, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was actually pretty fun. It got right into it, and it's one of those like kids movies that's like has some really adult stuff. Like it would probably freak some kids out at certain points in this movie, but I really love that. And right off the top, everybody in this movie was a bit of a dick. Like Coraline started off, she was kind of a dick. The neighbor kid, he was a bit of a dick, freaking her out and stuff. Her parents were just complete a-holes. Like her dad was a dick, her mom was like the worst person in the whole movie. And it was just like, man, everybody's kind of a dick in this movie. I didn't know it was like that. But it goes through, Coraline's moved to this new house. She has to move away from her friends. Both her parents really suck. And it's just like she's got nothing that she can do. She's going around the house and she finds this little, she finds this little hole in the wall. Her mom actually opens up the little door and she finds that it's actually bricked off, and it's like, well, that probably happened when they were separating the house, because it's basically just a giant house, but they actually separated it. The neighbor's grandmother actually owns it. She used to live there, and she separated it into 3 separate apartments. So they have basically they have 2 floors. There are 2 women that live kind of in like the basement portion, and then there's another guy that lives in kind of the attic portion. So she's going through, she meets her neighbors and stuff like that, but she goes through this door. She finds this other world with the other mother and another father, and everything's super perfect. They actually cook her food that she enjoys instead of gross whatever her dad made it just look nasty. Mom's not a total dick. Dad's not a total dick. They don't just, they both were like writers for like a garden magazine or something. Like that was their whole thing, was like they write stuff about plants and flowers and mulch and stuff like that. It was like such a weird thing, and that's what they both did. I thought that was so weird, but that's what they both basically did. And so in this other world, that wasn't a thing. It was like they didn't work and they only cared about her. So she loved that at first, and then of course it gets really crazy, and it's like, all right, everyone has buttons on their eyes, and it just gets crazier and crazier, and then she realizes that they want her to get the buttons in her eyes, and she can't leave all of a sudden. Like, she goes to sleep and normally wakes up, and it's really crazy. Of course, I'm going to be doing spoilers in this, because the movie's like 7 years old at this point, so there's no point in me doing like a separate thing. Like, if you've seen it by now, you've seen it. If you didn't see it, you didn't care. So I'm just going to do, this just one thing. I normally don't do that, but it's just one of those movies. But I certainly enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. I figured it was going to kind of play out the way that it did. Once the eye thing happened, I was like, she's definitely not going to wake up, back home, since she has to kind of give the monster, the other mother, an answer as far as whether or not she wants to stay there forever and get the pins in her eyes. So I knew it was going to get really crazy, and then it just got like really insane, and we find out that the mother is kind of like the one that's in control of everything. Like, she basically is the reason everything else exists. She kind of created all the other characters, and I actually thought that was a nice little twist, because I thought they were all fake versions. And it was like, okay, obviously, because they did it, it was like her real mother is like the worst person. Her dad kind of ignored her a little bit, but her mother was the one that ignored her and was always like yelling at her as if she was just super annoying. Like, God, why did I have kids? Like, you almost expected her to just say that all the time. And so it was like, all right, so the opposite of that would be like the mother would be the best person, and that made a lot of sense to me. And then we find out that the mother basically created everyone else. They're all fake, and like if the mother doesn't get what she wants, everyone starts to get all weird and like distorted, and the father was like really droopy and stuff, and he started to get like fat and like really ugly. And then as it got worse and worse, he literally was turning into a pumpkin. Like, she kept calling him that. And then as it got worse, he got fatter and fatter, and eventually there's a part where she drags him out. He starts to look like a pumpkin, like his stomach actually takes on that shape. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And the other Wymie, or Wybie was his name, I guess they can fight back, which they all kind of do. At least, the father and Wybie do in the other world. But the other Wybie is kind of separated from the beginning, he's like, his mouth gets tied up and stuff because he kind of helped out the cat a little bit. And I guess it was even before that because the mother knew, like, okay, you're just like the other YB, you're just gonna say something and try to help her out. So is his mouth shut, which is really creepy. That was probably the creepiest thing in the whole movie because he couldn't even talk. So it was like all he could do is have a little line that goes up or goes down because that was it in his mouth. Other than that, he'd smile, frown, or it's just a flat line. And it was like that somehow makes it super super creepy. Like he can't even speak, so it makes him even less realistic compared to the other versions who still get to walk around and talk. It's like he's got no eyes and he can't really open his mouth, so it makes it even creepier. But I love that idea. It was really cool. And then she she does this thing where he has like the giant grin on his face and just all sorts of crazy stuff. So it got really creepy at certain points, but really loved it. And we have the tie-in story with the actual YB and his grandmother. And as soon as he mentioned it, I was like, okay. He was like, oh, my grandmother said her sister disappeared when she was a kid. I was like, okay, she went to the other world and she was taken forever. I already knew that as soon as they said it. I was like, that's obvious. And of course that's what happens. 3 kids had their spirits taken by they call it like the beldam, which can mean either beautiful lady or it can mean like ugly old witch. I read that. But it was kind of cool, and that's when it got really crazy too. She finds like their spirits and stuff, and she has to find their eyes because they actually accepted it and chose to stay there forever because that's her whole thing. Is like she finds kids whose lives are really bad, and she makes them think that they can have the perfect life, and even when they accept that, she kind of eats their souls pretty much. So it's like, wow, that was really crazy. I thought she'd only do that if you didn't accept. But she does it no matter what. She just wants to, I guess, eat the kids. It wasn't really specified if she like ate them specifically or like took their souls or exactly how it was. But basically, they were ghosts trapped in this alternate dimension. So it's kind of like she, took the power from their souls or something like that. So it got really crazy at that point. It was like, holy crap, she's got to fight and do this and do that. And then her parents get kidnapped and she's, trapped and stuff. And for a second, I think it was the day when she escaped. For a split second, because it was like, oh, her mom said that she was going to go out and get food and stuff like that. When she came back and the food was rotted, for a split second I was like, holy crap, was she like trapped for years or something and they just abandoned the house? Because that's the first thing I thought was like, she's going to come out like super young, but it'll be like 4 or 5 years later. There's like some really crazy like time travel type stuff. And that didn't end up happening, so I'm still a little confused by the whole thing where, like, the food was just, for whatever reason, rotted out, like, instantaneously. And, it was like she has to figure out where her parents are, and she ends up finding out that they're in the other world. So she goes back with the Keith David cat, who's really awesome in the movie. And I knew it was really funny because I'm like, at some point, I know this cat's going to end up talking. And when he first talks, I didn't know it was going to be Keith David, so I was like, no. And it's like this super deep voice. I was like, holy crap, that's kind of funny. It was also kind of creepy because it was like, it could be a normal voice, but like Keith David has like a really deep voice, and it was just kind of crazy. Like, the first thing he said was just like no in a super deep voice. I was like, holy crap, that was a little creepier than I was expecting. But he ends up being a friend, and they kind of work together at the end. And she's able to save her parents. She finds the eyes. She goes through the test, and she actually gets help from the 2, I guess, the former dancers, the older ladies. She gets the little golden, or not golden, but it's like the little jade, triangle thing with the hole in the middle, and it helps her find the eyes and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. And then she loses that, and it's like, I have to figure out how to find the last eye, as well as my parents, because she thought she would lose. And so the kids, one of the spirits lets her know, like, you have to be really slick about it because she's not going to let you escape even if you win. So she makes sure that the Beldam opens up the door. She finds out that her parents are inside the Detroit Zoo globe, which I'll talk about the Detroit stuff because I was trying to find information on that, but I'll get to that later. And she realizes that she has to win, and she's like, oh, well, you're not going anywhere. And when she picked up the cat, that was probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie. She was like, I'm not staying here. She's like, no, I'm not. And she just throws the cat. And I was like, I'm pretty sure she didn't plan on doing that. And she just picked up the cat and just launched him. And he just was, I guess in his head was like, this little crazy girl just picked me up and threw me. That wasn't a part of the plan. But he went with it. It was like, well, gotta attack her now. I'm in midair. So he goes crazy on her. She gets the globe and she's able to escape. And they both actually end up escaping. I love the visuals when she was grabbing the eyes and everything would like fade and go black and white. I thought that looked really cool, and like the sound effect they had was actually very sweet too. But I love that when they first like walked around the world and like everything got erased and it was just like glowing underneath them. I thought that was really cool with the stop motion because like these are puppets, so it's like how are they gonna make this look? And I just thought it looked really cool. It's like they just put them on like a glowing surface and they're just walking above it. I was like, that actually looks really sweet because everything else is very controlled and it's supposed to be like normal sunlight and moonlight. So that sort of just everlasting glow sort of deal. I love that scene when they first did it. I thought that was actually very cool. But her getting the eyes was really sweet, and going through the challenges and dealing with the two women and stuff like that was really cool, and how they became like really grotesque and stuff. They kind of look like those colored Twizzlers, the little twist Twizzlers or whatever, because they were like green and purple or green and pink. And I was like, that just makes me think of the Twizzlers because their arms were like wrapped together. But I thought that was cool. She had some crazy challenges. The other Bobinski was really cool, and it was like I knew it was gonna just end up being the rats, but it got really creepy when she's like, "You're just a crappy version of Mr. Bobinski," and then the voice got like really demonic. It was like, "No, not that. Like, not even that anymore." I was like, that got really creepy. I didn't expect that, and then of course, all the rats come out. Well, the mice come out, but when they die, they turn into the actual the rats. But that was really cool. Them defeating her was pretty sweet, and then it still continues on because the hand got snapped off, and she actually gets help from YB at the end of the movie when she's trying to get rid of the key so that the other mother can never escape. So I really enjoyed that, and he actually destroys the hand. I thought it was a little risky putting the hand together with the rock. I understood it made sense, but I was like, that still seems risky. If it's crazy, weird magic stuff, I'd be like, let's just separate all these little shattered pieces and then maybe put one with the rock or like one of the crucial pieces, or just put two or something. I don't know, but put like the palm, down under there or something like that. I don't know, but it was just really interesting. It was pretty crazy. So I really enjoyed the movie. The one thing that annoyed me about the ending is that the parents were still the same. I kind of hated that, to be totally honest, because she saved them, and then they come back through the room, or basically like they come home and she hugs them, and it's like, what the heck is happening? Like, what do you mean you missed us and stuff like that? And she's like, what are you talking about? And then her mother was instantly like bitch mode again. I was like, oh, that really sucks. Like, they didn't remember anything. And she even says, like, what about all the snow and stuff you guys are covered in? And the mom was just mad at her, like, oh, you broke my favorite snow globe. And I was like, man, that kind of sucks. But I guess that's kind of part of the story. Is like Coraline just had to really deal with that. Like that was her life, and it of course showed that it got a little bit better with her parents afterwards. But I was like, man, that kind of sucks. Like she could have died, and she's like saved their lives and everything, and they're just the same. And I was like, I kind of wish they knew that. Just it would have been a little bit better to me personally. But it all kind of goes through, and things start to work out and stuff. And I certainly enjoyed the movie. Um, really early on when Coraline met YB, that's when the Michigan stuff started to come through, and she was like, apparently the movie takes place in Oregon, because I was looking up a bunch of stuff. I was trying to figure out like, why is there all this Michigan stuff, in this movie. So she's like, I'm from Pontiac, and as soon as she said that, I was like, Michigan? And then he's like, YB's like, what? And she's like, Michigan? And I was like, that's super awesome, because I'm from Detroit, so I at least know where Pontiac is. So I'm like, that's in my general area. So that I first off thought was like, okay, that's very cool. And then I think the second thing was the Michigan State sweater that her dad was wearing. Like, okay, there's a lot of Michigan stuff in here. So I don't know who on the team was from Michigan. I know the person that did the sweater was, because I looked up some stuff on IMDb. It was supposed to be a U of M sweater, but the guy who did the sweaters, or like the lead for the people that were actually knitting all the clothing, he was from Michigan State, so he was like, screw that, I'm putting my alma mater. So he put Michigan State, and it was supposed to be U of M, but it ended up being Michigan State. And I'm guessing part of the reason that there was some Michigan and Detroit stuff in there, like the Detroit Zoo, the father, I found out, was actually based off of Ted Raimi, who's definitely from Michigan. I believe from Pontiac. Ted and Sam Raimi, who did like Evil Dead and stuff. And if you watch Evil Dead, um, was it the first one? Yeah, in the very first Evil Dead, Ash's girlfriend wears a Michigan State shirt because that's where all of them are from. So that could be a part of why there's a lot of Michigan stuff in it. I don't know. I didn't find anything else that said Ted Raimi was a part of the production or anything. It was just based off of him. So I don't know, maybe that was a part of it. Maybe he knew some of the people doing the movie or something like that. But the director is from like New Jersey and stuff. But I was trying to figure out like who in this movie is like from Detroit or from Michigan. So I thought that was really cool. It's like I know Pontiac. As soon as she said, I was like, is she about to say Michigan? Because I'm sure there are like a million Pontiacs. There's multiple Hollywoods, but there's technically multiple Detroits as well. So I was like, maybe Michigan. It could be anywhere, but she said Michigan, so that was cool. Michigan State, the Detroit Zoo, which was based on an actual piece that's at the Detroit Zoo. It's some fountain that we have somewhere. I haven't been to the zoo in forever, but it's some fountain somewhere in there that was made in like 1920 something. Which, of course, once again, that's from the IMDb thing that I even know that. But that really surprised me. I always like seeing stuff like that, whether it's Detroit or just Metro Detroit, which is just a ton of stuff. I always think that's really cool. So I was really surprised to see that. I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of Michigan love in this movie. So I enjoyed that, just being from Michigan. But overall, it was a really good movie. Definitely one of those things where it's like it's very mature. Henry Selick, I believe, was the director. He's the same guy who did Nightmare Before Christmas. Even though, of course, a lot of people think Tim Burton did that. He was the director on that movie. But it was really good. It had that same sort of style. It's technically a kid's movie. I'd say this one is much creepier. Although, I guess it depends on how you look at the visuals for Nightmare Before Christmas, especially Oogie Boogie. But I'd say this is a bit creepier than that one. There's just certain elements of it. It's like, man, that like the button eye stuff, it's just one of those. It's like the uncanny valley sort of deal. It's like, okay, the normal people, they're stop motion, it looks cool, but when they have those button eyes and it's just the mouth moving and that's the expression, something about it's really creepy. And like I said with YB, he was the creepiest one to me because there was nothing on his face that could move. It was either a little curve up or a little curve down, and that was really it. So it was pretty cool watching that, and it looked beautiful. It was very well done. It was once again IMDb. I believe it said it was the first stop motion movie ever done in full 3D, which I could tell because I of course forgot that. But when I was watching it, there's a part where like some fingers come out. I was like, this was done in 3D. Like there's definitely some stuff where it's like, oh, fingers, and something falls and it falls towards the camera. It's like, this is clearly done in 3D. Or someone puts their hand out and it's like this, like that. And I was like, this is definitely made in 3D. But 3D or not, definitely a great movie. Visuals, just I love stop motion movies. They always end up being creepy because it's always the people that did Nightmare Before Christmas. Those are like the only two people that seem to do um, stop motion movies. So that's about it. But I certainly enjoyed this one. If you somehow haven't seen it by now, and you for whatever reason got I spoiled the whole thing for you, still recommend checking it out. There's visually just a lot of stuff to see. Yeah, pretty much spoiled the whole thing, but it's kind of what you would expect. There's no real surprises in it. It's just how is it gonna happen is kind of where it comes from. It's more the journey than the end, because you know how it's gonna end from the very beginning. Like obviously she's not gonna die and get kidnapped. That would be a crazy ending, but it's not that horrific. It's just creepy. So definitely worth checking it out. I wouldn't mind watching this again. I honestly I wouldn't mind seeing it. Like if I watched it tonight, I wouldn't hate that. I saw it last night. I would not mind watching it again. I actually really had a good time with this movie. Highly recommended, of course, if you've seen it. I would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts. I would love to know what other stop motion movies you guys really enjoy. Like, what are your favorites? Like I said, there are only like 6 that I can even think of, and they're all about like the same 2 people. Maybe I don't know who did James and the Giant Peach. That's the only one I can think of, and that's a very interesting movie with the half live action, half animation. I always loved that. I remember the first time I saw that, it kind of creeped me out because one of the characters is a centipede. But it was very interesting. Plus, the kid went through that transformation. It's just always really weird when I watch that movie, but enjoy it. But it's Nightmare Before Christmas. Every time I say that, I want to say Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare Before Christmas. Basically, every other Tim Burton actually directed movies, which would be Corpse Bride and Frankenweenie. Yeah, I believe both of those are actually directed by Tim Burton. And then we have Coraline and James and the Giant Peach. That's really all I can think of. I'm sure there are a million more out there, but I just don't know. It's either they're all creepy. They're all creepy except for James and the Giant Peach. That's the only one that's just like it's just an adventure. It's creepy because of bugs, but that's about it. Everything else is like, oh, this is Halloween Town, and this is a kid bringing a dog back to life, and here come ghosts. Oh, Paranorman. Paranorman's another one. So that's the sixth one. That's also Tim Burton, and I think that one came out before Frankenweenie, or maybe it was after. I don't know. There's also a theory that those are all linked together. That like Corpse Bride is like the guy in that is actually Jack Skellington before he died, and then the kid from Frankenweenie is the same person as a young kid. So that's kind of cool too, and it makes sense. I mean, one creepy dude goes into the creepy afterlife, but either way, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this and what your favorite stop motion movies are, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.